The quiet before the storm. The Earth had always been a peaceful place. It had watched as countless species rose and fell throughout the galaxy. Humans had built cities, civilizations, and alliances, always striving for peace. For centuries, humanity had been patient, diplomatic, and kind, even when others weren't. The Earth, in its calm wisdom, chose to solve problems through talks, treaties, and compromise. But today, something was different. In the heart of Earth's capital, a meeting was taking place, one that could change the entire galaxy. The United Earth government was gathering diplomats from across the universe. Representatives from alien species who had been allies, enemies, and everything in between were seated in a large, circular room. It was supposed to be just another summit, another meeting of discussion and debate. But beneath the surface, something was bubbling, a quiet tension that no one could ignore. General Riley, the head of Earth's military forces, sat at the far end of the room. His sharp eyes scanned the faces of the aliens gathered before him. He had seen their kind before, heard their empty promises of peace, and watched as they broke those promises again and again. For years, humanity had played by the rules. But now, Riley could feel it. This was the moment everything would change. The human representatives had been patient, but they were no longer willing to sit idly by while their enemies plotted behind their backs. The galaxy was full of threats, but Earth had been blind to them for too long. For years, alien factions had toyed with humanity, testing their limits, pushing their boundaries. Earth's patience had been stretched thinner than ever before, but it was now snapping. Diplomats from the Varrock, a brutal insectoid species, were the first to speak. Their tall, towering bodies glistened with cold, alien technology, and their voices reverberated through the room with an unsettling buzz. They had been allies once, but in recent years, their actions had become suspicious. The Varrock had broken trade agreements, stolen technology, and tried to undermine Earth's military development. The human diplomats had tolerated it all. But now, the time for diplomacy was ending. General Riley, the Varrock leader, said, his voice cold and filled with contempt, "We have come to a decision. Earth's place in the galaxy is no longer what it once was. It's time you accepted your role." The room fell silent. General Riley's expression remained unchanged. He had heard this kind of arrogance before. The Varrock thought they could intimidate Earth, but they had no idea what was coming. Earth's representatives, usually the picture of calm and patience, exchanged quick, knowing glances. They had been preparing for this moment for years, but none of them could have predicted how it would feel to finally confront their enemies head-on. There was no going back now. The time for talks had ended. "We've heard your threats for the last time," General Riley finally said, his voice steady and clear, cutting through the tension in the room. "Your people have pushed Earth too far. And now, you'll see what happens when humanity is no longer willing to tolerate your lies." The Varrock leader sneered. "You think your threats will intimidate us, human?" Riley's eyes narrowed. He knew that the Varrock would never understand the depths of humanity's power until it was too late. The galaxy had underestimated humans for centuries, thinking them weak and naive, but that was about to change. The world knew it, and Riley felt it deep within him. Earth had kept its secrets, and now the time had come to reveal them. He turned to his right, where Admiral Thompson sat. Thompson was one of Earth's finest strategists, a man who had seen the worst of war and lived to tell the tale. The Admiral gave a slight nod, his signal that the final preparations were complete. "Enough talk," Riley said, his voice now low and dangerous. "We are done being the peaceful diplomats you've known us as. The time for patience is over." The human representatives stood, their faces calm but resolute. The room was still silent, as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath. For a moment, everything seemed frozen in time. The weight of what was about to happen hung in the air like a storm ready to strike. The tension had reached its peak. The alien representatives, sensing the change in the air, exchanged uneasy glances. They had no idea what was coming. But the humans did. Earth's fleet had been hidden for years, built in secret and waiting for this very moment. And now, those fleets would rise from the depths of space, carrying with them the fury of a species that had been pushed to the edge. "Send the message," Riley ordered. A small device was activated at the center of the table, and the message was broadcast across the galaxy. "We are Earth, and we have had enough." As the words echoed across the stars, the aliens in the room looked at each other, a sudden realization dawning on them. They had pushed humanity to the edge, and now they would see the consequences. The calm before the storm was over. The unleashing. The silence in the room lingered like a heavy fog. The aliens, who had once believed that humanity was nothing more than a collection of peaceful diplomats, now found themselves staring into the eyes of the unknown. The broadcast message, "We are Earth, and we have had enough," had spread across the galaxy, reaching countless star systems. It wasn't just a declaration. It was a warning. General Riley stood tall at the head of the table, his steely gaze fixed on the alien diplomats. His words echoed in the minds of every representative present. Humanity was no longer the patient species they had once been. They were something else now. The room shifted with a subtle yet unmistakable unease. The Varric, towering and insect-like, exchanged glances, their once confident postures now slightly bent. The Mechari, a race known for their precision and cold logic, had their usual composure tested. Even the mighty Track, who had once scorned humanity's weak defenses, seemed to reconsider their earlier bravado. But it wasn't just the words that had left the galaxy in shock. It was what would come next. Across the Earth's vast hidden fleets, the first wave of ships was already breaking free from the depths of space. Built in secret, far beyond the reach of any prying eyes, these ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were massive, their hulking forms capable of withstanding unimaginable forces. The people of Earth had always known how to build, but what they had built in secret was something the universe had failed to anticipate. An unstoppable force of will, hidden for far too long. Admiral Thompson's voice crackled over the communication channels, speaking to the commanders of the fleets stationed across the galaxy. His tone was calm, even though the gravity of the moment could not be ignored. "Initiate Protocol 0, Thompson ordered. With that single command, the fleets that Earth had kept secret for generations began to move. Ships, massive in scale, slowly shifted into formation. Each vessel was armed with advanced weaponry that far surpassed anything known to the galaxy. The planet's greatest scientists and engineers had worked in the shadows, creating technologies that seemed almost mythical. On Earth, civilians looked up at the night sky. They had no idea that the silent giant of their world was awakening. The fleets that had been hidden within the far reaches of space were now visible, not only to Earth's people but to the rest of the galaxy. It was a slow realization that spread across every species' communication systems. The Varric leader, still seated at the table, scoffed. "This is nothing but a bluff. They have no power to challenge us." Riley remained silent. The Varric had always been arrogant, but this time, their pride was misplaced. A second wave of communication sent shockwaves throughout the room. The vast array of Earth's ships was now in motion. The Varric's words of mockery turned into hushed whispers as they watched, helpless, as Earth's might was revealed in all its terrifying glory. General Riley's voice was steady as he addressed the room, his eyes unwavering. "We didn't want to do this, but you forced our hand. The galaxy has made a mistake. You thought we were weak. Now you will understand the true power of humanity." The first volley of energy blasts from Earth's fleet rained down on the enemy ships in a brilliant, deadly display of raw power. It was a message not just to the Varric, but to every species across the stars. Humanity was no longer a species to be underestimated. The alien representatives recoiled in horror as they watched Earth's forces decimate enemy vessels in seconds. The Mechari, once calm and precise, had lost their usual composure. The Tarak, known for their fearlessness in battle, were now uncertain of their own strength. The galaxy was witnessing something it had never imagined, a force far more powerful than any could have anticipated, and it came from a species that had been underestimated for far too long. The Earth's ships, each like a giant floating city, unleashed their full might. They were not just military vessels, they were symbols of humanity's strength, its resourcefulness, and its determination. Every blast, every explosion was a declaration that Earth had given its patience to the galaxy, and now the cost of underestimating them would be paid in full. But it wasn't just the sheer force of the ships that struck fear into the hearts of the galaxy's civilizations. It was the methodical precision of the strike. Earth's forces were disciplined and calculated, unleashing waves of power with precision and purpose. They knew exactly what they were doing. As the explosions rocked the room, the once dismissive aliens now looked at each other with a mixture of fear and disbelief. They had never seen anything like this before. The galaxy had thought humanity's peaceful nature was weakness. Now, it was clear that peace had been nothing more than a choice that had come to an end. And then, in the depths of space, an unknown figure watched as Earth's ships tore through the galaxy with relentless force. This figure, hidden in the darkness, could see the destruction unfolding and felt a sense of dread. The humanity that had once been considered meek was now the galaxy's greatest threat. The quiet had ended. The storm was here. The galaxy stirs. The shockwave of humanity's sudden revelation reverberated throughout the galaxy. Across countless star systems, every species that had once believed they could ignore humanity's existence now found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew. Communications from Earth's fleets flooded the universal channels, each transmission a chilling reminder that humanity was no longer a race to be taken lightly. On the Varric homeworld, the capital city fell into chaos. The grand halls, once filled with the triumphant laughter of the Varric's imperial elite, were now filled with hurried whispers and nervous footsteps. The leaders who had scoffed at humanity's attempts at diplomacy, who had dismissed Earth's warnings as empty threats, were now scrambling to understand how things had escalated so quickly. "We have miscalculated," a Varric High General muttered, his long, spindly fingers twitching nervously as he looked over the reports coming in. "Their technology. It's beyond anything we've seen." Meanwhile, the Mechari, known for their cold logic and unflinching reasoning, sat in their silent chambers, their faces expressionless as the fleet transmissions continued. Even their advanced algorithms had failed to predict the scale of humanity's military might. Their once unshakable confidence was cracking. In the far reaches of the galaxy, the Drak, fierce, proud, and known for their insatiable thirst for battle, found themselves uneasy. The Council of Warlords, usually brimming with fiery arrogance, now spoke in hushed tones. They had fought countless battles, but nothing in their experience had prepared them for the onslaught humanity had unleashed. Yet, amid the fear and uncertainty, there was one more question that loomed over every species. Why? Why had humanity waited so long to show their true strength? What had pushed them to this point? And what was to come next? Back on Earth, as the first waves of attacks were carried out by the massive fleets, the answer to these questions began to unfold. Admiral Thompson stood at the bridge of one of Earth's most powerful warships, his hands resting on the polished surface of the command center's table. He had spent years planning for this moment, and now that it was here, his expression remained calm, almost detached. He had witnessed too much to be rattled by the destruction unfolding before him. This was the inevitable result of humanity's refusal to be broken. "We've sent our message," Thompson said, his voice steady. "Now we wait." "Wait for what, Admiral?" a young officer asked, glancing up from his console. "The enemy fleet is still out there, scattered but regrouping. They won't be down for long." Thompson's gaze hardened. "We wait for them to make the next move." The orders had been clear. Earth was not to be the aggressor. Humanity's patience was long, but it wasn't infinite. Earth had done what was necessary, but now it was time to let the galaxy decide if it would acknowledge their power or force humanity to push further. At that very moment, the alien fleets began to regroup. The Varrock, unable to match Earth's might head-on, resorted to hit-and-run tactics, testing Earth's defenses and strategies. The Mechari, calculating and pragmatic, analyzed every piece of data they could extract, searching for a weakness, anything they could exploit. The Turak, meanwhile, prepared for the possibility of direct confrontation, preparing their ships and warriors for a battle they had never expected to face. Despite their fear, all the alien species were unified by one thought. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. The universe, which had once been so vast and uncontrollable, now seemed smaller. Every transmission from Earth's fleets made it clear. Humanity was not just a species among many. They were a force to be reckoned with. And the rest of the galaxy would soon find out just how deep that power ran. But amid the growing tension, there was a feeling that Earth's patience had not just snapped. It had evolved into something more. Humanity wasn't just angry. They weren't just lashing out. They had become something else entirely. They had become the unshakable titan of the stars, a force whose authority would echo through the galaxy for centuries to come. The galaxy's reckoning. The growing tension between Earth and the alien powers reached a boiling point. The galaxy, once a place of unchallenged imperialism and overwhelming superiority of the alien races, now trembled under the weight of humanity's presence. The Varrock, Mechari, and Turak had always been accustomed to controlling the fate of lesser species with ease, but now they faced something unprecedented. A species that had never before unleashed its full potential. On the Varrock War Council, the once overconfident generals now huddled in tight, anxious clusters. The reports flooding in from the front lines were devastating. Human technology was advancing far faster than they had anticipated. The relentless precision of Earth's military strategies had caught them off guard, and their own ships, long the pinnacle of intergalactic warfare, were being decimated at an alarming rate. General Corlin, the leader of the Varrock War Council, slammed his fist onto the table, the force making the surface crack slightly under the impact. How could we have been so blind? They are not just some insignificant species anymore. Earth has become a power we cannot ignore. Across the table, his second-in-command, Captain Elis, looked over the newest intelligence reports with a grim expression. Their technology has evolved. We underestimated their military might and their sheer will to fight. This is no longer just a war of weapons. It's a war of survival. But the Varrock weren't the only ones reeling from humanity's unexpected rise. The Mechari had always prided themselves on their intellect, their strategy, and their calculated approach to warfare. Yet, as they watched the same reports, they couldn't deny the same truth. They had severely misjudged humanity's resolve. Their once confident and detached calculations had now turned into frantic analyses, trying to find a weakness in Earth's forces. But so far, nothing they tried worked. Earth's military was too resilient, too innovative. We are facing an enemy like no other, Grand Strategist Zethar admitted to his closest advisors. I thought we could outthink them, outmaneuver them. But they are unpredictable. They don't fight like we do. And that is why they are winning. In the vast Turak warship, Lord Carrick, the leader of the Turak fleet, stood in front of the enormous view screen, his eyes fixed on the advancing fleet of Earth's forces. He clenched his fists, his mind racing with plans for direct engagement. Despite their reputation as the fiercest warriors in the galaxy, even the Turak were finding themselves outmatched by humanity's adaptability. This wasn't a race they could simply conquer with brute force. We must strike first, and we must strike hard. Garrick's voice was a low growl, his eyes burning with the instinct to battle. We will not allow Earth to become the new rulers of this galaxy. Yet, even as the Turak prepared for a full-scale assault, the galaxy's other powers knew one thing for certain. The game had changed. The ancient races of the galaxy, once so confident in their superiority, were now forced to confront the truth they had been ignoring for too long. Humanity had become a power that could not be ignored. Earth's patience had been a gift to the galaxy, but now it had run out. And the galaxy was about to pay the price for its complacency. Back on Earth, as the final preparations for the next wave of combat were being made, Admiral Thompson stood at the helm of the flagship, his gaze cold and focused. He had been through countless battles before, but this was something different. This wasn't about defending Earth anymore. This was about making sure every species in the galaxy knew one thing. Humanity was no longer a race to be taken lightly. "We've given them time," Thompson said, his voice low but filled with purpose. "Now they will feel the weight of their decisions. No one threatens Earth and gets away with it. We are not the same species they once overlooked." His words echoed throughout the command room, and the crew, knowing what was at stake, felt a surge of pride and determination. The time for negotiation had passed. It was time for the galaxy to face the consequences of its underestimation. As Earth's fleet advanced toward the enemy lines, every ship, every soldier, every officer knew one thing. This was the beginning of the reckoning. The galaxy would never forget the day humanity's patience had finally snapped, and Earth's fleets would make sure that no species would ever underestimate them again. The tide turns. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as Earth's forces continued their relentless advance. What had once seemed like a distant, improbable victory was now unfolding before their eyes. The alien empires that had dominated for millennia had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now they would be forced to confront the consequences of their arrogance. On the bridge of the Turak flagship, Lord Garrick paced back and forth, his mind racing. The Turak had been the most aggressive and feared of the galactic species, renowned for their brutal warfare and tactical genius. But they were struggling. Despite their superior firepower, their fleet was being torn apart by Earth's new strategies they couldn't predict. Each of their attacks was countered with devastating precision, as though the humans were always one step ahead. Garrick's pride, which had been so unshakable just days before, now felt like a distant memory. "We need to change our tactics," Garrick growled to his advisors. "We cannot keep fighting them in the same way. They've adapted. They know our every move before we make it." His second-in-command, Captain Varlick, looked at the tactical displays in front of him, his expression grim. "We cannot rely on brute force anymore. We need something unexpected." On the other side of the galaxy, the Varrick fleet was facing the same issue. General Corlin, once so confident in his people's superiority, now found himself in the midst of a crisis. Earth's ships, which had seemed so insignificant at first, were proving to be far more dangerous than anticipated. The Varrick ships, armed with weapons that had obliterated countless civilizations, were now struggling against humanity's unpredictable tactics. "Retreat," Corlin ordered suddenly, his voice sharp. "We regroup and reanalyze. We cannot afford another disastrous engagement like this." Across the galaxy, the story was the same. The Mechari, who had relied so heavily on their intellect and strategy, were watching as their intricate plans were undone by humanity's ability to think outside the box. They had expected humans to follow predictable patterns, to be bound by conventional thinking. Instead, humanity's adaptability had shattered their illusions. Every time the Mechari thought they had Earth cornered, humanity found a way out, turning the tide of battle in their favor. Grand Strategist Zethar sat in his chambers, his eyes scanning the reports from the front lines. "They're not just surviving. They're winning," he muttered to himself. "They're not like any species we've encountered before." As the alien empires scrambled to regroup, Admiral Thompson stood on the command deck of Earth's flagship, watching the unfolding battle with a calm, focused demeanor. The decision had been made. No more mercy. No more hesitation. Humanity had endured the threats of the galaxy for far too long. Now, the universe would see exactly what Earth was capable of when pushed to the limit. "We've been patient," Admiral Thompson spoke to his crew, his voice steady. "But now, the galaxy will know what happens when humanity's patience runs out." The order was given, and Earth's fleet surged forward, cutting through the remaining alien forces with precision. Each ship, each soldier, each fighter knew exactly what was at stake. This was no longer about survival. It was about showing the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. The alien fleets, once confident in their superiority, now found themselves overwhelmed by the sheer force of Earth's military might. Their ships, once proud and unyielding, were being torn apart by weapons they had never seen before. Advanced technologies developed in secret, honed by years of preparation and ingenuity. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting, and humanity was at the center of it. In the midst of the chaos, a lone Tarak warrior ship attempted to make a desperate break for it. Fleeing toward the edge of the system, it was no use. A barrage of Earth's weapons slammed into the fleeing ship, sending it spiraling out of control. There would be no escape for any of them now. As the final alien ships fell, and Earth's forces stood victorious, the galaxy was left in stunned silence. The powers that had once ruled with an iron fist were now on the retreat, their pride shattered, their confidence broken. Humanity had struck a blow that no one would forget. But even as Earth's fleet basked in the triumph, Admiral Thompson knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy would not let go of its arrogance so easily, and there would be more battles to fight, more challenges to face. But one thing was certain now: humanity had made its mark. No one would ever look at Earth the same way again. The galaxy's reckoning. The universe had always known the alien species as the dominant forces, their strength, and their technology unmatched by anything that could be found in the farthest reaches of space. Yet, in the span of mere weeks, everything had changed. The once feared empires were now reeling from the effects of humanity's unexpected rise to power. But what was more dangerous than humanity's military might was something far subtler: its resolve. For the first time in history, the galaxy had to confront the terrifying reality. Earth was no longer a silent observer in the grand galactic stage. It had stepped into the fight, and its patience, worn thin from centuries of suffering, had snapped. In the heart of the Tarak Empire, Lord Garrick sat in his chambers, his mind consumed by the horrors they had witnessed. The mighty Tarak forces had never known defeat, until now. Reports flooded in from every corner of their empire: fleets lost, planets conquered, allies surrendered. The humans, with their unrelenting firepower and strategic brilliance, had crushed them at every turn. "Karak, we cannot deny it any longer," Captain Varlick said quietly, entering the room with a stern look. "The humans are not just a threat. They are an unstoppable force." Karak clenched his fists, his claws digging into the stone table in front of him. "We underestimated them," he muttered, staring out at the vast, star-filled space outside his window. "We thought their patience would break, but instead, they have shown us their true power. And now, they will never be satisfied until they have everything." Elsewhere, in the Varric Empire's council chambers, General Corlin stood in front of a massive display screen, showing the steady retreat of his forces. The bright red lines that once marked their victories now represented their losses. He couldn't hide the panic in his eyes, not anymore. "We are losing," Corlin said, the weight of those words crushing him. "They have cut through our fleets like they were made of paper. And they do not stop." One by one, the greatest military minds of the galaxy were faced with the same cold, hard truth: humanity was no longer the underdog. And Earth, with its unexpected tactics and relentless drive, had shaken the foundations of galactic power. Now the rest of the universe was left to deal with the aftermath. Admiral Thompson stood on the command deck of Earth's flagship, the Excalibur, watching the reports come in from across the galaxy. Each one brought news of humanity's ever-growing dominance. The alliances they had formed with various species, including the peaceful but powerful Alari and the resourceful Zorans, had shifted the balance of power in ways the galaxy had never anticipated. What was once our greatest advantage, Thompson thought to himself, is now our greatest weakness. His thoughts lingered on the past, when humanity had relied on alliances for survival, bending its will to the whims of the galactic powers. But that era was over. Earth had grown strong on its own. The galaxy was no longer a place of diplomacy and careful negotiation. It was a battlefield, and humanity had just shown everyone that they weren't afraid to fight. Across the galaxy, news spread like wildfire. The alien empires, once so sure of their place in the stars, now found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew. They had never anticipated this level of resistance, this level of ferocity from a species they had once dismissed as weak and insignificant. But humanity was not done yet. The stakes were higher now. As Earth's forces pushed forward, they encountered new, more dangerous enemies. Alien species, once content to watch from the sidelines, now rallied against the humans. The galaxy was at a tipping point, and humanity's triumphs would not go unanswered. Admiral Thompson was well aware of the gravity of the situation. The victories they had achieved were monumental, but they had also painted a target on Earth's back. Now, every species with a grudge or a desire for power would come for them. But Earth had already proven that it could survive. No, it could thrive, in the face of overwhelming odds. The calm, measured pace of the war was over. The fight had escalated into something far more dangerous, with every new battle pushing the human spirit further. And humanity would rise to meet each new challenge. "Prepare for the next wave," Thompson ordered, his voice steady. "The galaxy has not seen the full extent of what Earth can do yet. We will show them all what happens when humanity is pushed too far." In the outer reaches of the galaxy, a lone ship raced toward Earth's orbit. It carried a message, one that would ignite the final stages of a war that no one could stop. This was no longer just about survival. It was about dominance. And humanity, the Deathworlders, had every intention of claiming their place at the top of the galaxy. As the ship approached its destination, a silent tension filled the air. The end of the war, and the fate of the galaxy, were on the brink of being decided. The galaxy would soon learn what happens when a species, pushed to the breaking point, finally decides to take what it had been denied for far too long. The dawn of a new era. The final wave had arrived. The galaxy's fate, once secure in the hands of the mighty alien empires, now rested in the hands of humanity. Earth, the planet once seen as insignificant, had shattered that illusion. The galaxy had underestimated them for far too long, and now it was time to pay the price. Admiral Thompson stood on the command deck of the Excalibur, staring out at the vast expanse of space. The tension in the air was palpable. Every battle, every loss, had led them to this moment. Humanity was no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting for dominance. The message had been sent across the stars. Earth would not be pushed around any longer. Across the galaxy, the final battle lines were drawn. The alien empires that had once looked down on humanity now found themselves desperate to prevent their annihilation. The Turak, the Varric, the Zethon, all had mobilized their remaining forces. The greatest fleets of the galaxy, filled with ships of unimaginable power, were ready to face Earth's fleet in one final confrontation. But there was one thing the alien empires had not considered: humanity's unpredictability. Earth's forces were not bound by the conventional strategies of war. The human mind was capable of adapting, improvising, and doing the unthinkable when necessary. As the massive fleets collided in the cold darkness of space, the Excalibur surged forward. The human forces, with their advanced technology and relentless determination, tore through the alien defenses like they were nothing more than paper. Every ship, every weapon, was an extension of humanity's desire to show the galaxy that Earth was not a place to be ignored. The tide of the battle shifted, slowly at first, then with unstoppable force. The galaxy's once proud fleets buckled under the pressure. Earth's forces fought with an intensity no one had ever seen before, relentless in their pursuit of victory. And with each passing moment, the alien empires saw their final dreams of dominance crumble. Is this how it ends? Captain Varlic of the Tarak Empire asked, watching in disbelief as Earth's fleet tore through their defenses. His voice was a low whisper, full of fear. We never thought it would come to this. Lord Garrick, once the most feared warlord in the galaxy, stared in shock. He had fought countless battles, defeated entire civilizations, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. The humans weren't just winning. They were decimating them. From the command deck of the Excalibur, Admiral Thompson watched the final moments of the battle unfold. His heart was heavy with the weight of what was happening. The cost had been great. Lives had been lost, and entire planets had fallen. But the victory? No, the triumph was undeniable. Earth had proven itself. He turned to his crew, who stood by, waiting for orders. We've won. The galaxy has been changed forever. As the last of the alien fleets disintegrated in the distance, humanity stood victorious. But there was no celebration. The galaxy was forever altered, and the echoes of that final battle would resonate across the stars for generations to come. Humanity had not just survived, it had conquered. The galaxy would never forget the day Earth's patience ran out. The once mighty empires, their ships scattered across the void, could only watch as humanity's fleet made its final descent toward Earth. The galaxy would never again underestimate the humans, and the once peaceful, quiet planet, Earth, now stood as the supreme power in the galaxy. The old order was gone. A new era had begun. The humans had made their mark, and nothing, no species, no empire, would ever forget the day humanity decided to stop being nice.